delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to see this expression of willingness to collaborate and do things together, which I think is a dream that has always been present, and it is lovely to see that it is coming to be enacted. I've been asked to say a few words about the training in psychiatry. I have prepared a few slides. I hope I can see those. You can see those. Not the end, of course, but the beginning, but that's just a detail. I don't know how to do this. Right. I wanted to remind you that what psychiatrists are to become. The psychiatrists basically will become private practitioners, or they will start working in the some kind of mental health service, be it in a hospital or maybe in some other institution or somewhere like this. The private psychiatrists, private practitioners is one group basically, and everybody else, in fact, fits into another group. That is, there are significant differences between those two groups. The private psychiatrist basically has to know how to diagnose and treat mental disorders. And it depends on his or her wish, how much of this he will be doing. And there are many, at least in countries in which there are possibilities for private practice, there are many who in fact will organize their life in relation to the number of people whom he wants to see. And I think that we really cannot much influence what we can offer him and what we think a psychiatrist, a private psychiatrist should do and should learn is to diagnose and treat mental disorders. Occasionally, he will have to provide some advice to carers, and even more infrequently, he'll have to provide an expert opinion to demands of courts. The rest of the psychiatrists will have to do other things as well. There are, of course, also will have to learn how to diagnose and treat mental disorders. They will have to provide advice to carers, but also to other medical specialists, both in the institutions in which they work, as well as in the institutions that are outside of their own place of service. They will have to train junior colleagues and other healthcare workers. They will occasionally have to participate in research, which is done by others, and provide opinion demanded by courts. But in my opinion, there are at least 5 other things that psychiatrists of tomorrow have to do in addition to their clinical duties. One, they'll have to convince others to implement measures of primary prevention of mental disorders. This is a perfectly neglected field. We know that approximately 40 to 50% of all mental disorders are accessible by primary prevention. A simple example is, for example, the provision of iodine to pregnant women in order to prevent the occurrence of cretinism. It is not done at present because there are still between 4 and 6 million children born in the world because they had iodine deficiency, their mothers had iodine deficiency. Psychiatrists are not going to go around and distribute iodine, but they have to convince others to implement these measures of primary prevention of mental disorders. The second thing which they have to do is they also have to think of how to help the community in which they are working or the community that surrounds them, how to organize themselves and how to be ready to accept people after their treatment has been done. And they have to learn how to inspire others to do things that will be of common good. It's not an easy task and very often require a complete change of personality, if you wish, to get that done. They'll have to, another challenge which is before the psychiatrists of tomorrow is the problem of comorbidity. The problem of comorbidity is very simple because the number of people who are comorbid, that is, have a physical and a mental illness at the same time, is continuously growing, while medicine as a whole is continuously more fragmented. And the fragmentation of medicine and the increase of people with multitude of disorders is a major challenge. It's particularly a challenge for psychiatrists who have, by tradition and by history, been separated from the rest of the medical world, both geographically, but also in their way of thinking and in the way of using the tools which they have. They will also, psychiatrists of tomorrow, they will have to be better prepared in the management of the departments which they are going to run, in which people are receiving treatment. At present, they are thrown very often into the management scale, particularly in our complex world, so interested in ensuring effectiveness and efficiency of various services, and learning about management could save them a lot of trouble. They'll have to learn how to communicate with media and use them for all sorts of purposes. One of them is to reduce the stigma of mental illness. There are other ways away as well, which have to be used to reduce stigma. But they also have to communicate with media in order to promote the activities which are important and which should lead to an improvement of mental health in the community. Now, what do they get today in most parts of the world? They get books, textbooks, and they are in countries such as those in the global south, which are these textbooks are often foreign made and they are quite aged. I've recently looked at some books, textbooks of psychiatry, and compare those that were published in the 1920s with those that were published in the 2020s. And I must say that a large proportion of the material is still not changed in any way. They will also learn, in addition to the study of textbooks, from the imitation of senior colleagues. They look at the inspired teacher and they do the same as the teacher does, forgetting a little bit that maybe they are not the same by personality, image, and otherwise what his or her teacher is. But they do learn by observation and they imitate. And the third time, occasionally and in some places, there will be lectures and seminars, usually no more than 4 hours a week. That's how they are prepared formally. And then there are, of course, the informal, incidental instruction. Trial and error, you make a mistake, you remember what you've done and what you shouldn't have done. Incidental reading, things that you run into. Nobody has guided you to do it, but you have found it there. Occasional presence in congresses. All of these are incidental learning. So that is what they're getting today. So what do we have to add to the training? We have to add public health expertise, because this expertise will allow the psychiatrists to spot the possibilities for primary prevention of mental disorder. You remember, I thought that was one of the truly neglected areas. They have to be given pedagogic skills. They have to be taught how to teach. Teaching is a highly skilled profession, and just giving people a chance to teach without training them how to do it is very often a waste of everybody's time, waste of time of the teacher and of the trainee. They have to learn enough of research to be able to recognize things that stink, research that has been done which is not worthy, assessments of medications which is not acceptable, a number of other things. They have to not be researchers as much, but they have to know how to recognize when research is done well. I already mentioned they have to learn how to cope with comorbidity, but they also have to learn how to improve themselves, to recognize and deal at least with the basic physical disorders which they encounter. All of the tasks that are about primary prevention and others require communication skills, how to convince government, how to negotiate a position, how to say no to requests that you don't want to accept, how to be able to listen, and then of course management skills as well. Now, I think that there is a number of tasks which I've now tried to just glance at with you. And for those, the people are sorting from their training, usually not well prepared. Now, it is perfectly possible and very often quite simple to acquire this additional knowledge and skills. And this will make people happier in their work and their performance will be more useful to society. Now, the best way to create this reform is to start doing what makes up the reform. Doing it alone by learning things in places which are not necessarily foreseen in the program, by doing it with being a guest in other people's departments, by learning with peers, and if you're lucky, with all the teachers and others who should be concerned. I do hope that the new union between yourselves worldwide will make these reform more easy. One of the great problems of people in many of the third world countries that they feel very lonely. And I think that creating a network, creating an electronic net that will allow people to work together and start improving the care as well as at the same time improving the training will be something that can be done together so much more jointly, so much better jointly than when one has to do it alone. So good luck to this new association. I hope to be able to help it on its way, and I hope it will have a great success in the future. Thank you.